Some stories aren't written in the ring, they're whispered in hotel lobbies at midnight. The air in the city that night was thick with an unnamed tension, the kind that precedes a major weather event or an inescapable shift in power. For the wrestling world, this shift was about to unfold not under arena spotlights, but beneath the quiet velvet glow of a forgotten hotel bar. The clock had just struck 12:07 a.m. Security cameras were conveniently offline, a minor glitch in the system that only fueled the inevitable rumors. Charlotte Flair arrived first. She didn't stride. She flowed. Her posture was the only giveaway of her identity, a regal, almost arrogant straightness even when wearing a simple tailored black coat, her iconic silhouette unmistakable even in the shadows. She didn't check her phone. She didn't scan the room. She simply chose a booth in the deepest corner, its back to the wall, a clear signal. This was not a social call. Her eyes, usually burning with an intense theatrical fire, were focused, cold, and utterly detached, like a chess master observing an empty board, already 3 moves ahead. The stillness around her was unnerving. For a woman who commanded attention, she was successfully dissolving into the background, a queen temporarily abdicating her throne to execute a covert operation. The tension built with the ticking of the grandfather clock near the entrance. Every passing minute felt like a breath held across the entire women's division. The silent wait was the true drama. It was the moment before the title match bell rings, stretched into an eternity. This was a private moment of immense gravity, a secret pact being drafted in the language of ambition. The air was heavy, charged not with hostility, but with the pure, cold electricity of an impending, monumental decision. She sipped a glass of water, her gaze fixed on the mahogany table, waiting for the only person who could possibly be worth this level of secrecy. The stage was set. The second entrance was less about flair and more about calculated discretion. Rhea Ripley's former manager slipped into the lobby 23 minutes later. He didn't walk in. He drifted, a man who had mastered the art of being seen only when he chose to be. His face, usually a canvas of expressive, manipulative glee, was neutral, almost melancholic. He carried the weight of a very recent, very public split. A betrayal that had been loudly condemned by the mommy herself, Rhea Ripley. The manager's severance from the dominant force in the division had left him adrift, but critically, it had also left him with an arsenal of intimate, tactical knowledge about Rhea, her weaknesses, her routines, the psychological triggers that could momentarily shatter her composure. This knowledge was his true currency. He didn't approach Charlotte's table immediately. He paused by a window, looking out at his own reflection, a small, weary sigh escaping him. This meeting wasn't just a business transaction. It was a desperate attempt at professional rehabilitation, a chance to prove his value wasn't contingent on one dominant client. He needed to be the puppet master again. Charlotte's presence was an acknowledgement of his unique, dangerous utility. He finally moved, his steps measured, crossing the carpeted floor as if navigating a minefield. When he reached the booth, he didn't offer a greeting, merely a curt nod. Charlotte didn't invite him to sit. She simply lifted her hand a fraction of an inch, a gesture that meant, "Get on with it." The manager slid into the seat opposite her. The distance between them, both physical and emotional, was vast, yet their purpose was instantly aligned. 2 cold, strategic minds meeting to dismantle a mutual rival. It wasn't hatred that brought them together. It was the chilling, clinical pursuit of absolute power. The whispers started instantly, low and intense, focused entirely on the current champion, Rhea Ripley. The meeting was in full swing, hidden from the world, but vibrating with the force of an oncoming tectonic shift. The meeting concluded as silently as it began, 47 minutes later. No handshake, no celebratory toast. Charlotte simply rose, her expression unchanged, and walked back into the silent city. The manager stayed behind for a deliberate 5 minutes, paying for a drink he hadn't touched, solidifying the alibi of a lonely, late-night indulgence. But the contract was sealed. It wasn't written on paper. It was an understanding forged in shared ambition and mutual respect for ruthless efficiency. Charlotte didn't need a manager. She needed a weapon, a key capable of unlocking Rhea's psychological armor. The manager, in turn, didn't need a conventional client. He needed a champion whose profile was so high, whose legacy was so secure, that a partnership would instantly erase the stain of his prior dismissal. This unwritten contract was the most dangerous kind, a temporary alliance of convenience between two highly motivated, ethically flexible individuals. The morning after, the emotional weight of the encounter began to spread through the wrestling community, an invisible virus of speculation. Nothing had been said publicly, yet every glance, every post, every change in booking felt charged. The fans were the first to react. A cryptic tweet from a well-placed insider, just the emoji of a crown next to a snake, was enough. The social media landscape exploded. The Queen and the snake trended globally within hours, the fan-fueled conspiracy machine running at full throttle. Fans, the true emotional heart of the business, began dissecting every frame of previous matches, every subtle, shared glance between Charlotte and the manager from months ago, retroactively fitting the pieces into a stunning, inevitable puzzle. The excitement wasn't just about a potential matchup, it was about the drama of the clandestine power play, the narrative depth that had been added to a rivalry already defined by its intensity. Backstage, the tension was palpable, not in shouts, but in the chilling quiet. The wrestlers are an ecosystem of shared knowledge and intense observation. They live and breathe the subtext of the business. Everyone knew. No one spoke of it directly. The manager's sudden, confident strut through the hallways, a stark contrast to his meek demeanor just a week prior, was confirmation enough. The women's locker room, usually a vibrant hub of banter and shared anxieties, was eerily subdued. The dynamic had shifted overnight. Charlotte Flair, the established megastar, had done the unthinkable. She had weaponized a rival's personal trauma. This wasn't merely a wrestling tactic. It was a character assassination attempt, executed with surgical precision. The moral lines of their professional conduct were being redrawn. Other competitors watched Charlotte with a mixture of professional awe and genuine fear. The move was brutal, calculated, and absolutely brilliant. It demonstrated a level of commitment to her legacy that bordered on obsessive, reinforcing her position not just as an elite athlete, but as the ultimate political operator. The emotional pressure on Rhea Ripley, meanwhile, was instantly astronomical. The manager knew her insecurities, the exact words to derail her focus, the specific psychological buttons to push during a match. This wasn't about wrestling holds anymore. It was about mental warfare. Rhea, fiercely private and protective of her vulnerabilities, now faced the prospect of her deepest fears being broadcast to millions as a strategic tool. The script had changed from a championship rivalry to a true, deeply personal vendetta. Every other story, every other wrestler, felt momentarily irrelevant, reduced to background noise. The silent consensus was that the Queen had just played her trump card, and the champion was now fighting with a major handicap, one that ran deeper than any physical injury. Rhea Ripley's silence was the loudest statement of all. In the age of instant aggressive digital response, the champion offered nothing. No angry tweets, no fiery Instagram stories, no immediate declarative interview challenging the betrayal. The emotional vacuum created by her non-response was instantly filled by panic, both from the fans who loved her and the management who marketed her. Her silence wasn't born of fear. It was a testament to the depth of the pain and the severity of the threat. She recognized the maneuver for what it was, not a simple wrestling angle, but a calculated invasion of her private, professional space. Responding with anger would be to play right into Charlotte and the manager's hands, confirming the effectiveness of their strategy and validating the manager's intimate knowledge. Instead, she chose to internalize the fire, letting it fuel a cold, focused rage that was infinitely more dangerous than any outward display of emotion. Her social media went dark, her public appearances became minimal, and her demeanor backstage, though calm, radiated a lethal intensity. It was the focus of a predator hunting its prey, the quiet before the definitive kill. The legacy pressure was mounting with her every non-answer. The narrative was spinning out of control. Is Rhea Ripley mentally strong enough to face her past? The question itself was a weapon. The champion was being forced to fight a ghost from her previous professional life, armed with the intimate secrets of her own professional evolution. The emotional stakes of her next public appearance became monumental. Fans and critics alike were looking not for a powerbomb, but for a sign, a flicker in her eyes, a break in her composure, that the conspiracy had worked. Her silence was a tightrope walk over a pit of public scrutiny. She was betting that her emotional discipline was stronger than their psychological warfare. This wait for her counter-move became the primary drama of the entire industry. The mainstream media and sports commentary circuits erupted in a beautiful, profitable chaos. This was a story perfectly tailored for the modern news cycle, high stakes, celebrity-driven, and cloaked in a layer of delicious, unsubstantiated rumor. The headlines were sensational, trading on the emotional shockwave. The Ric Flair school of political warfare, Charlotte's masterstroke, betrayal and brilliance, the night the women's division ended, and Rhea Ripley's empire under attack, can mommy survive her own history? The narrative wasn't just about a potential match, it was about the moral fiber of the sport. Pundits debated whether Charlotte's move was brilliant or unforgivable. Was she a revolutionary heel breaking new ground in psychological warfare, or a desperate, entitled legacy star abusing her status? The emotional polarity of the debate was immense. Charlotte, a figure already polarizing due to her success, was suddenly cast as the ultimate villain, a Machiavellian chess piece willing to sacrifice ethics for a championship belt and a record. Her family, the legendary Flair name, was immediately dragged into the fray. Reporters hounded them for a quote, a defense, or even an acknowledgement of the strategic ruthlessness. The legacy of the entire family was being reevaluated through the lens of this one cold-blooded maneuver. For her part, Charlotte offered only one heavily produced promo, a single, slow smile into the camera and a whisper of, "Desperate people do desperate things, and I am never desperate." The implication was clear. If she had to resort to such extreme measures, it was only because the challenge, Rhea, was so great, thus simultaneously elevating her rival while justifying her own villainy. The media, fueled by the endless stream of fan reaction and the lack of a clear answer from Rhea, became a co-conspirator, amplifying the shock and ensuring that the clandestine hotel meeting became the central, defining story of the year. For Charlotte, the weight of the Flair name was never heavier, yet it was precisely what allowed her to execute this move. The legacy wasn't just about championships. It was about the game. The art of political maneuvering, the psychological destruction of an opponent, and the relentless pursuit of being recognized as the best, even if it meant being universally despised. Her father's history provided both a blueprint and a shield. When fans condemned her for the meeting, a significant faction defended it as a necessary, strategic Ric Flair move. This emotional division among the fan base only intensified the drama. Charlotte herself felt the pressure not to simply win the title, but to justify the severity of her action. Losing was no longer an option. A defeat would not just be a loss, it would be a public humiliation, proof that she had sacrificed her integrity for a futile cause. The pressure morphed into an intense, almost maniacal focus. She began training with a chilling, isolated intensity, her public appearances becoming even more curated and controlled. Every movement was a performance of icy confidence, hiding the immense self-imposed pressure. The secret meeting had not made her life easier. It had made her mission singular and brutally high stakes. She had thrown a grenade into the most powerful rivalry in the company, and she was now standing directly in the fallout zone. The emotional toll of maintaining this level of villainy, of deliberately courting the total hatred of the audience, was immense. But it was a calculated sacrifice. She was trading love for legendary status, a path many great villains have walked. The silence from her immediate family was perhaps the most telling emotional detail. They neither condemned nor congratulated. They simply watched, understanding the silent, unforgiving demands of the legacy she was desperately trying to both honor and surpass. The true, unseen tragedy of the meeting lay in the emotional crossfire endured by Rhea Ripley's close circle. While Charlotte was leveraging a professional legacy, Rhea was battling for her personal boundaries. The manager's knowledge extended beyond professional tactics. It included details of Rhea's personal life that were irrelevant to wrestling, but devastating when used to destabilize her publicly. Her family and friends, who had proudly watched her climb the mountain of professional wrestling, were now subjected to the dark side of her fame. They saw her struggle with the betrayal, the knowledge that someone she had trusted was now selling her vulnerabilities for strategic gain. The media's endless dissection of the manager's implied secrets forced them to become highly defensive and guarded. They became her silent, external support system, a shield against the toxicity. The emotional energy Rhea had to expend simply to appear unaffected was monumental. Every time she stepped out, she was performing not just for the crowd, but for herself and her loved ones, proving that the words of a bitter ex-associate could not break her. This internal struggle became her defining emotional arc. The match was no longer Charlotte versus Rhea. It was Rhea versus her own ghost, weaponized by the Queen. The true heroism in this chapter wasn't a show of strength, but a show of stoicism, the champion refusing to allow her personal pain to become her opponent's victory. The quiet pride and unwavering faith of her family became the bedrock that prevented her emotional collapse. They reminded her that the manager's power was only borrowed and that the real strength of Mommy lay in her authenticity, a trait neither Charlotte nor the manager could ever truly steal or replicate. The moment finally arrived, the first face-to-face confrontation between the champion and the new alliance. The arena was a sea of noise, but when Charlotte and the manager stepped onto the stage, a wave of profound, expectant quiet washed over the crowd. The manager took the mic first, a smug, calculated smile plastered on his face. He didn't rant or rave. He spoke in measured, academic tones, dissecting Rhea's in-ring psychology, her over-reliance on certain power moves, her predictable counters. It was clinical, humiliating, and devastatingly accurate. Every word was a knife twist, backed by the authority of intimate knowledge. Charlotte stood beside him silent, her expression one of bored superiority, letting the manager do the dirty work. Then Rhea Ripley's music hit. She walked out alone, devoid of her usual bombastic entrance performance. She was not the screaming, theatrical mommy. She was a coiled snake. She walked straight past the ropes, across the ring, and stood toe-to-toe with the manager. The crowd noise evaporated. In a moment of pure, unscripted fury, she didn't hit him. She didn't yell. She reached up and slowly, deliberately, pulled the microphone from his hand. Her eyes, usually obscured by face paint, were raw, shining with unshed tears of absolute rage. She lowered the mic, her silence stretching the tension to a breaking point. Then, she threw the microphone to the ground with a deafening thud. She turned her back on the manager, dismissed him completely, and directed her entire focus to Charlotte. The message was clear. You are the threat. He is merely your tool. The emotional power of this dismissal was immense. It instantly stripped the manager of his newfound authority, reducing him from a strategic mastermind back to a footnote. Charlotte, for the first time in the entire storyline, looked genuinely startled. Rhea had just changed the script from a psychological assault to a simple, pure fight between two ultimate rivals. The true, hidden consequence of Charlotte's power move wasn't a championship victory. It was the unintentional creation of the most emotionally resilient version of Rhea Ripley the division had ever seen. Charlotte's ruthlessness forced Rhea to confront her own vulnerabilities, to mend the cracks in her foundation, and to find a strength that was unassailable by external factors. The secret meeting was intended to break the champion, but it only tempered her. It transformed her from a dominant force relying on physical superiority into a legendary figure defined by her mental toughness and her ability to transcend personal betrayal. The manager, in his quest for relevance, became the catalyst for Rhea's legendary hardening. The viral moment, the secret meeting in the hotel lobby, was not Charlotte's power move at all. It was Rhea's crucible. The ultimate twist was the realization that the betrayal, meant to elevate Charlotte, ended up becoming the emotional cornerstone of Rhea Ripley's career, the narrative depth that cemented her place in history. Charlotte got her high-profile rivalry, but Rhea got an indomitable narrative. When the two finally met for the title, the manager's presence was irrelevant. Rhea fought with a cold, focused precision, her movements driven not by anger, but by a chilling, absolute certainty. The emotional drama Charlotte had engineered was meant to distract, but it gifted Rhea the clarity she needed to win. The outcome of the match, however it concluded, became secondary to this profound emotional and psychological shift. The whisper in the lobby at midnight didn't rewrite the women's division for Charlotte Flair. It simply wrote the definitive, untouchable first chapter of Rhea Ripley's enduring legacy. And that, in the theater of professional wrestling, was a power move no one, especially Charlotte, ever saw coming. The drama always is in the unseen consequence.